In quantum physics, constant measurement of a system keeps it stuck in one state. It essentially becomes frozen. This is known as the Quantum Zeno Effect. Now, something very similar happens with your consciousness. When you become all caught up in and too focused on your current circumstances, they also become stuck. Your mind essentially keeps you frozen in the same reality. My name's Georgia. I have a master's degree in consciousness, spirituality and transpersonal psychology, and in my free time I love to research manifestation and the science behind shifting our reality. Now, in today's video, I'm going to be exploring a very interesting phenomenon within quantum physics, which provides a really powerful metaphor for manifestation and how we really need to be careful when it comes to our focus and our attachments. So first, let's look at the Quantum Zeno Effect. Before I explain this effect, I just want to briefly outline some background within quantum physics. So, quantum physics is the study of quantum particles like electrons. Now, these particles behave very weirdly. Basically, when quantum particles like electrons are not being observed, which just means they're not being measured, they are in a state known as quantum superposition, which basically just means that the particle has no defined state like we would expect. They behave as if they're in multiple states at once, which is very strange. Now, what's really interesting is as soon as a measurement is taken, those particles stop behaving in this weird state of superposition and they take on a definite state. So now they behave like we would expect a physical object to behave. They do have a defined location in space and time. So the act of measurement causes them to go from this state of superposition, as if they're in multiple states at once, to taking on a defined state. Now, to imagine this, you can imagine tossing a coin. When that coin is being tossed and when it's spinning in the air, you can't tell if it's heads or tails. It's almost as if it's both at the same time. And then as soon as that coin hits a surface, it takes on one of those states. So it's either heads or it's tails. This is kind of like what's happening in quantum physics when a measurement is taken. Now, where the Quantum Zeno Effect comes in is if you constantly measure that quantum system. So if you keep measuring that electron that has now taken on a definite state, it's going to become stuck in that state. Now, this is because in order for a quantum particle to change states, it has to be able to go through the superposition, and measurement collapses that superposition. So if you are constantly measuring that particle, then it can no longer re-enter the superposition, which means it can no longer evolve and shift into a different state. It's going to be stuck in the state it's currently in. So let's go back to the coin analogy for a second. When that coin hits the surface, it's going to take on a definite state, either heads or tails. Let's assume it is heads. Now, it's going to remain as heads as it remains stuck on that surface, unless someone decides to toss the coin again, in which case it will either land again on heads, but it might also land again on tails, because the act of tossing that coin has allowed it to evolve and shift. Another good metaphor for understanding the Quantum Zeno Effect is, imagine that you are trying to fall asleep and you have someone with you who keeps poking you and asking you if you're asleep yet. That's going to make it very difficult for you to fall asleep, so you're going to be stuck in the state of being awake. This is another perfect analogy for what's happening in the Quantum Zeno Effect. Constant measurement keeps a system stuck in the same state. Now, experiments within quantum physics show that measurement has this effect. However, no one really understands why a measurement has this effect, and there are lots of different interpretations. Now, one interpretation suggests that it actually has something to do with consciousness that is having the effect on quantum systems. Now, if this interpretation is true, then it might mean that the Quantum Zeno Effect is more than just a metaphor when it comes to manifestation, that maybe consciousness itself can keep systems stuck in their state. So how does all of this relate to you? If you are currently living a reality that is not your dream reality, and you keep focusing on exactly what you don't want to experience, so maybe you keep emotionally reacting to these circumstances, or you keep constantly checking your reality to see if your circumstances have changed, then what you're doing is keeping yourself stuck in that same reality. You're not giving your circumstances space to shift and evolve. Think back to the effect of measurement in the Quantum Zeno Effect. Constant measurement prevents a quantum system from being able to re-enter a superposition and so being able to shift. It's the same with your current circumstances. If you keep focusing on exactly what you don't want to experience and keep pouring your energy into that, then you're not giving those circumstances the space to shift and evolve. You are essentially just constantly reaffirming your current circumstances. And if you want to go beyond this metaphor and actually look at how it relates to neuroscience, we actually have systems in our brain, such as the reticular activating system, which essentially determine what our brain pays attention to. So if you are constantly focusing on what you don't want, then your brain is going to filter in more of that. So again, even from a neuroscientific perspective, the more you focus on what you don't want, the more you are keeping yourself stuck in that reality. So if you want to change your circumstances, you need to shift your focus. Now, there's also a flip side to this, and this is when you become so attached to whatever it is that you're trying to manifest. And the reason this is bad is because when you do become too attached, what happens is you're constantly checking on your manifestation. You're doubting it, you're over-analyzing it, you're constantly asking, where is it? How is it going to come to me? When is it going to come to me? And this, again, is the same as if you're measuring the quantum system over and over again. Now, when we actually look at what's happening here, the problem is not that you're focusing on your desire. You should be doing that. We want to focus as much as we can on what we're trying to manifest. But the problem is when we become too attached to it, we're not focusing on the desire. We end up constantly bringing our focus back to our current circumstances. Essentially, we're reaffirming the fact that we don't currently have our desire. So by becoming too attached and constantly over-analyzing when our manifestation is going to come, what we're actually doing is reaffirming the lack. So again, it's the same effect as the Quantum Zeno Effect. It's as if we're constantly measuring our current reality and preventing it from being able to change and evolve. You're not allowing your current circumstances to shift or your manifestation to materialize. Another way you can imagine this is imagine that you're planting a seed. You don't keep digging it up every day to check if it's grown. You just trust that it will grow. If you do keep digging it up every day, then you're going to interrupt its process of growth. So it's not about focusing too much on your desire. It's about understanding that the attachment to your desire is causing you to affirm the lack. Detachment, on the other hand, allows you to keep focusing on your desire and keep feeding that desire your energy without affirming your current circumstances. Again, think about planting that seed. You want to keep watering the seed and giving it the nutrients. That's akin to you focusing on your desire, but you don't want to keep digging it up, which would be the attachment and constantly rechecking your current circumstances to see if they've changed. So what's the solution to all of this? I think there are 3 key things that we need to do. The first one is to stop focusing on what we don't want to experience. When all of these stresses and these doubts come up, we need to learn to process them so that we can let them go. So when you start feeling that stress, for example, in relation to your current reality, what you want to do is learn to process that emotion, which just means that you just need to learn to feel it. Don't try to escape it or to push the feeling down. You need to feel that emotion so that you can let it go instead of becoming trapped by it. Because as soon as you become trapped by that emotion, then you're going to end up focusing on the reality that you don't want to experience, and you're going to get trapped in these thought spirals that just keep you in these loops of constantly thinking about everything that you don't want in life. And it's going to keep you reaffirming the reality that you don't want to experience. When you learn to process these emotions when they come up, it becomes much easier to bring yourself back to the present moment. And if you can master this, then you're going to give your current circumstances the space to shift and evolve. Now, the second thing we need to do is focus on what we do want to experience instead. So do all of the manifestation techniques, do the visualizations, the affirmations, the scripting. It doesn't really matter what you do, just pick the ones that work for you and make sure you are constantly shifting your focus back to what you do want to experience instead. Because these things aren't in our current circumstances, so we don't have the same issue when it comes to freezing them in place. In fact, we do want to focus on them as much as we can so that we can actually start to materialize them. So keep affirming the reality you do want to create. You want to prime your mind to be attuned to that reality. We already mentioned how our brain filters in information, so the more you focus on the reality you do want to experience, the more your brain is going to filter that information in and opportunities that are in line with that reality. And also don't forget to take inspired action to, of course, move you physically closer to your manifestations. Now, the third and maybe most important thing that we need to do is detach. So we want to focus on our manifestations, but we want to make sure that we don't become so attached that we keep reaffirming our current circumstances. Now here we need to understand that the when or how your manifestation is going to come to you is not your business. Your job is simply to focus on your manifestation, saturate your consciousness with your manifestation, but not obsess over how it's going to happen. You need to master the art of detachment. Now, if you want help learning how to detach, because this can be one of the trickiest parts of manifestation, then I'll link a video here where I go through exactly why detachment is so important and practical steps about how you can master detaching. For now, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you found the Quantum Zeno Effect metaphor not only useful but also interesting. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I hope to see you in the next one.